Hello everyone, this is Sherry and this is Blue and you're watching Lessons Learned. Welcome back to the Batik Boho series. I am on episode number 4 here and I'm going to show you what I'm doing for machine quilting on the quilt. I've already started a little bit. I was going to do some free motion quilting, but I'm finding out that my new machine, the way it's sitting and the type of surface that I'm on, it just is not easy enough to move it in straight, long, curvy lines. It wants to kind of jump back. So I went ahead and put my walking foot back on, and I'm just going to go ahead and echo those leaves. I'll go up to a point, stop and turn and go back down, and I'm going to do that throughout the whole quilt. And like I said, I do have some finished already. I'm going to show you if I can here. You can kind of see where I've echoed through there. And in some areas I've already got 2, and as I go out I'm going to get wider and wider because I don't need a whole lot of concentrated stitching out in this outer area. So yeah, this is just going to kind of help the petals to pop a little bit. And I'm just going to pick up where I had left off. My bobbin had run out, so I went ahead and filled my bobbin up, and I'm ready to go again. We'll see how far we can get with that. And I'm going to move the camera down so you can see some of my settings on the machine, so you can see what I'm doing, the foot I'm using, and that sort of thing. I hope you can see it. The lights, the LED lights are wonderful in this, but unfortunately it makes it so bright sometimes you can't really see in the camera. So I'm going to explain it as well if you can't exactly see what I'm talking about. Okay, I hope this is going to be somewhat easier for you to see. I have my stitch length on about 3.5, like for top stitching. I have my walking foot on, as you can see here. I have a quilting needle, which is a 90-14, and a full bobbin, and a partially full spool of thread here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started where I left off, and I'll put this on time lapse. Okay, I'm just checking to see if there's any kind of bald spots where I need to put some more quilting. As I got towards the bigger areas, I got a little more free-handed with it. It's not exactly an echo, but it kind of turned into more of a flame, leaf, petal type design. There's no rhyme or reason to it, which I kind of like. I don't know if you can tell, but this is kind of what I'm coming out with here on the edges. That's the gray thread, which you can't really see that very well, I'm pretty sure. Here it is on the white. It just kind of went everywhere. But it started out as echoing the petals. I don't know if you can see. Kind of like that. Kind of tell on that one. It's pretty amazing what you can do with just a walking foot. You could still move quite a bit. Sometimes your stitches will look a little sideways when you do that, but I mean, overall, look, that looks pretty good. Now, see, I went over the edge here just to kind of have a natural, make it look like it's naturally continuing, even though I'll have a binding on it. Not this won't be the binding, but you get the idea. Okay. I think I have enough on here, so now I'm going to trim this. I'm going to trim off all the way to this edge over at the cutting table. I'll be right back, and I'll show you the foot that I'm going to use to put the binding on with, and then to also finish the binding. The walking foot is what I'll use for the attaching of the binding, and then I have another foot that I'm going to use for the finishing of the binding, the actual attaching completely on the other side as well. So I'll be right back. Okay, we got that cut. See? Just cut the excess off right up to the quilt top. Now, leave your walking foot on and change your stitch back to at least 2, I would say, for this. And then just start anywhere. I usually start down the middle of one side. Leave about 6 inches. And just take the raw edge of your binding that you made and put it with the raw edge of your quilt. And start about 6 inches down. and start sewing it down with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Back stitch a little bit here just to keep it strong there where you're starting and ending. Now, as we get to a corner, I'll show you how to do the corner if you don't know how to do that. Okay, before I get all the way to the corner, I'm going to show you that you need to mark 1/4 inch from the edge of your quilt. This right here, either with a pen or you can kind of fold it and make a little crease, and then look and see where your binding is going to fall over top of that crease or that pin, and kind of do a finger press on it as well, because you're going to stop sewing there 1/4 inch short of the edge of the quilt. Lift your needle, pull it out, cut it off. Cut off your threads, not your binding. Now, take it and fold it up this way at a 90 degree, and then bring it back down this way and line it right back up with that 90 degree, and then make your little folded edge even with your quilt top. Then you're just gonna continue around sewing like you were. You can put a pin in that if you want. Okay, so you're going to start again with your 1/4 of an inch attaching your binding. Back stitch a little bit when you start again. I used scraps of my petals. I don't know if you recently watched the other 3 episodes, you probably saw me do that, or at least talk about it. So I have a Batik scrappy binding I'm putting on. Okay, one thing I want to mention. Once you get your last corner attached, stop everything you're doing and go down here where you attached your binding and you left like 5 or 6 inches, and measure from where you started sewing 12 inches. 12 inches. And put a pin in there, because that is where you're going to stop stitching your binding to be able to join the 2 ends without any hassle. I'm almost to my pin. There it is. I'm pulling it out and I'm going to back stitch. And then come off of the machine. Cut your thread. Okay, from here you have enough room to sew these 2 things together. Many times I've watched many videos of very experienced people who don't leave this much room. They'll leave 4 or 5 inches, and then it's a super struggle to get this together on the sewing machine. And I've made the mistake many times myself. Okay, so what we want to do is lay these 2 down. Now we can do it right here on this surface where you can see what I'm doing. let them overlap. Make sure they're flat. And we're going to cut this top one a 1/2 inch over the top of the end of the underneath one. A 1/2 inch towards the end extra. You can't mess this up. You have to watch what I'm doing here. Your top one, lay your bottom one flat, your top one over top, and cut 1/2 inch longer towards the sewn down side of your bottom one. Then you're going to open them up and sew a 1/4 inch seam. And see, even I messed up just now. I should have cut this one on top of that one. So now I've just got this little bitty thing here hanging on, but it's okay. So that's what I get for ragging out everybody that does it wrong, because I just did it wrong. That's what I get. But I've got enough here to get in here, no problem. 1/4 inch seam, right sides together, opened up. The bias or the binding is opened up. Okay. 1/4 inch seam. It's stuck in my machine. Okay, cut your extra threads. And there you go. Some people like to leave it enough to where you can do it crosswise again, you know, like when you join all the pieces together and you lay them like this and then you sew down through here on an angle. You can do that too. I just prefer this method. 1/2 inch and then cut off a 1/2 inch extra, or I guess cut enough off to leave a 1/2 inch extra, and then sew them together, right sides together, opened 1/4 inch. Okay, so now I have this to where it'll lay the rest of the way down, so I can resume my sewing. I sewed to there, now I can resume that and get it finished. Got lots of little raggedy threads there. Get those out of the way. Okay. Okay, so now the next logical step is to press this towards the other side, and we'll be able to get our corners and everything laying flat. So just take your iron and iron this way towards this and around, and then you can either take wonder clips, pins, or not do anything really. You could just hold it while you sew in this ditch right here. And I'm going to change my foot for that, but first I'm going to go press this. Okay, I'm back. So now we're going to get our binding foot out of here. Looks like that. And by the way, I'm using a BabyLock JazzII. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little screwdriver and get the walking foot off. And then I also need my little this doodad I have to put back on from having my walking foot on there. So I stick that on there first because the, what do you call it? The binding foot is one of those easy, quick release type things. You just put your presser foot down and it grabs it. So once I get this on there, I'll just do that. Okay. Just set this here. Pick it up. Maybe. There. Okay, so I've got this nice wide foot that has two nice flat areas on it for keeping your binding in place as you sew it down. I barely have any bobbin, so let me change that real quick. Okay, so I pressed this down, folded it over. On my corners, I put a little wonder clip to keep those the way I wanted them. I'll do a really good check of those before I actually sew over it. But I should be able to stitch right along the edge here on the front. This is the front of my quilt. And it will, all of this back here will definitely catch. It should leave about 1/8 of an inch seam, it just inside that finished edge there. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm not going to start on the corner, I'm just going to start a little bit below the corner. First I need to thread my machine and give it a little test, and then I'll get started. I prefer to just thread my machine, just eyeballing it instead of using the threader. I fiddle with the threader longer than I do just doing it normal. Okay, so my thread length should be, I'm going to make it about 2.5. How about? And my width is 3.5, and I've got my tension on 7.5, which is kind of what I left it from when I was practicing free motion, and it seems to be doing okay. Maybe I should check it just to be sure. Anytime you rethread your machine, you probably ought to, you know, run a test strip through and see what it's doing. I've never had as many problems getting the threading right on the bobbin and on the top thread than I have on this machine. And I've had many machines. That looks good. It's not skipping any stitches. Or also, it's very sensitive with regard to how the bobbin was threaded. So even though you can thread a bobbin and not put it on there exactly, if you miss one step or it's off a little bit and it threads the bobbin wrong or with the wrong tension, the machine knows it. So you can easily misthread, spooling in the bobbin thread, making a new bobbin. I don't know why I can't think. And the machine knows it. So I've had to unthread bobbins, which I've never had to do before. So, not complaining about the machine itself. It's a good machine. It's fast, and I love the extra room for the throat here, but it's got some peculiarities to it. I'm just going to do a little back stitch here, not much. Okay, here we go. Just stay right in that right on that edge there. The flat plate that's on the right, if you put the inside edge right on the edge of the inside of your binding, it goes exactly where it's supposed to go. I don't know if you can see it in there, and I doubt it. I really want to get another camera or something so I can show you all a very sharp, crisp close-up of the machine, the foot, and the actual sewing. I know that would be helpful to you, but I'm trying to explain it as best I can. It's going on pretty nicely. That's the back side. Front side, you can't even see it. Just right in that little ditch there. I think I'm about ready for a new needle. It's getting thumpy. Oops. Sorry. Sorry, machine. Okay, all done. All done with the binding. Turned out pretty good. Okay, let me take it over to the table or to the design wall 1, and I'll show you how it came out. So here we are. We got our boho throw done. Batik boho throw. All finished. Guess what? I didn't put the center in. I was so conflicted over that. I even had it tacked on there at one time and then took it off. So I think I'm just kind of liking the casual look of a splattering of petals. So here we are with our binding on, all quilted, and here's our backing. Goes well with the colors in the petals. I'm pleased with it. Took a couple hours to get the machine quilting and the binding on, but it was worth the sweat to do it. And I'm glad this project is finished and I can enjoy my quilt. And this one I'm keeping for myself. So watch the whole series if you haven't. Go back to episode 1, 2, and 3 and see how this all came together. And hopefully you can make one too. And if you have been following the series and making your own version of this, I would love to see your photos. So send them to lessonslearned2021@gmail.com. So see you soon on another episode of Lessons Learned. Have a great day.